A desperate plea. Zara huddled beneath the twisted roots of a massive gnarled tree, her chest heaving with exertion and fear. The howls of the Kryln hunting beasts echoed through the perpetual twilight of Zorgax Minor, far too close for comfort. She had been running for days, subsisting on bitter roots and brackish water, all the while knowing in her heart that it was futile. She had been left here to die. At a mere 80 cycles old, Zara was considered a runt among the Kryln. Her slight frame and gentle nature were seen as weaknesses, defects to be culled from the gene pool. When her clan had been forced to flee their dying homeworld, the elders had decreed that Zara would be among those left behind. The needs of the many outweighed the needs of the few, after all. Now, alone on this savage planet, Zara clung to the stubborn shreds of hope within her. The Kryln were hardy. If she could just survive long enough, find a way to signal her people, maybe they would return for her. Yet each passing day made that dream seem more distant. A searing flash lit the sky, followed by a rumbling boom that shook the ground beneath her. Zara's head snapped up, her large amber eyes wide with shock. A ship. The distinctive flaming trail of a vessel punching through the atmosphere was unmistakable. But it wasn't Kryln, the design was all wrong. No, this was something entirely foreign. Zara watched in amazement as the ship, trailing smoke and flames, careened overhead, before impacting the planet's surface with a massive explosion somewhere in the distance. Survivors. There had to be survivors. And where there were survivors, there was hope. Zara was moving before she even realized it, scrambling from beneath the tangled roots and racing through the dense undergrowth. The hunting beasts forgotten, she focused solely on reaching the crash site, on finding whoever or whatever was aboard that ship. The journey was arduous, the twisted landscape treacherous and disorienting. More than once, Zara found herself at the edge of a sheer drop or facing an impassable wall of thorny vegetation. Yet she pressed on, driven by a desperate need that overrode all else. As she approached the crash site, the air grew thick with acrid smoke. The ship, a massive hulking thing of metal and composites, lay broken and burning against the shattered rock. Zara approached tentatively, her heart pounding. She had no idea what to expect, no concept of what beings could have created such a craft. A hacking cough drew her attention and Zara froze, dropping instinctively into a defensive crouch. There, emerging from the smoke, was a figure. It walked on two legs like a Kryln, but the similarities ended there. It was clad in a strange suit, with a transparent dome covering its head. And the face beneath that dome, it was utterly alien, with smooth, hairless skin and small, wide-set eyes. The creature stumbled, clearly injured, and Zara felt a rush of empathy. She knew all too well the pain of being alone, hurt and stranded on a hostile world. Steeling herself, she stepped forward. Hello, she called out, her voice rasping from disuse. Please, don't be afraid. I want to help. The alien creature started, its hand dropping to a device at its side, a weapon, Zara guessed. She raised her hands, palms outward in a universal gesture of peace. My name is Zara, she continued, forcing a note of calm into her voice. I am alone here, like you. Perhaps we can help each other. For a long, tense moment, the alien stared at her, its expression unreadable. Then, slowly, it nodded. As Zara approached, she couldn't help but marvel at the strange twists of fate that had brought her here. She, a discarded runt of the Kryln, now stood face to face with a being from another world. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could find a way to survive this place together. It was a desperate hope, but it was all she had. And for now, it would have to be enough. Unlikely allies. Zara approached the alien cautiously, her heart pounding. Up close, she could see it was male, with chiseled features and piercing blue eyes that regarded her warily from beneath the dome of his helmet. I'm Captain Jace Barrett of the Earth ship Odyssey, the alien said, his voice distorted by the helmet speaker. We were attacked by Kryln raiders and crashed here. Are you a native of this planet? Zara shook her head. No, I was left here by my own people, the Kryln. Abandoned for being weak. She couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. Jace's eyes widened in surprise. The Kryln left you here. Alone? Zara nodded, suddenly feeling exhausted. The adrenaline that had fueled her desperate flight to the crash site was fading, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. Jace seemed to sense her fatigue. Listen, Zara, I need to get back to my crew, see who else survived the crash. But you're welcome to come with me. We could use a friendly face right now, and you look like you could use some allies. Zara hesitated only a moment before nodding. She had no reason to trust this alien, but what choice did she have? Staying here alone was a death sentence. As they picked their way through the wreckage, Zara couldn't help but marvel at the technology on display. The ship was like nothing she had ever seen, all sleek lines and gleaming metal. It was a stark contrast to the organic curves of Kryln vessels. They found a handful of survivors huddled in the shadow of a large wing fragment. They were a diverse group, with skin tones ranging from pale to deep brown and a variety of facial features. Yet they all wore the same expressions of fear and uncertainty. Jace quickly introduced Zara to the group, explaining how she had come to their aid. There were some murmurs of suspicion, but mostly the humans seemed too shocked and disoriented to question her presence. As Jace conferred with his crew, Zara took a moment to observe her new companions. There was a tall, muscular male with dark skin and a shaved head who carried himself with a warrior's grace. A slight female with fiery red hair and sharp green eyes who seemed to be assessing Zara with calculated interest. And a male with light brown skin and kind eyes who was tending to the injuries of the others. Suddenly, a low, mournful howl echoed across the plain, causing everyone to freeze. Zara felt the blood drain from her face. She knew that sound all too well. Hunting beasts, she whispered, terror making her voice shake. We need to find shelter, now. Jace nodded sharply, his face grim. You heard her, he barked to his crew. Grab what supplies you can and let's move. We're not safe here. As the humans scrambled to gather what they could from the wreckage, Zara found herself falling into step beside the red-haired female. I'm Lieutenant Mara Alvarez, the woman said, her voice clipped and efficient. You seem to know this planet well. What can you tell us about these hunting beasts? Zara suppressed a shudder. They are apex predators, engineered by the Kryln for a single purpose, to kill. They hunt in packs, are incredibly fast and strong, and have a sense of smell that can detect prey from miles away. Mara's eyes narrowed. And how do we fight them? Zara met her gaze steadily. We don't. We run and we hide. It's the only way to survive. As the ragtag group set off across the barren landscape, the sun sinking low on the horizon, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were only just beginning. But for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel quite so alone. These humans, for all their strangeness, were now the closest thing she had to a clan. She just hoped they would be enough to keep each other alive in the trials to come. A daring plan. As night fell, the group took shelter in a shallow cave. Zara used her knowledge of local flora to guide them to bioluminescent mosses for light and insulating leaves for warmth. As they sat huddled around a makeshift heater salvaged from the wreckage, Jace laid out their situation. The distress beacon had been damaged in the crash. Without it, they had no way to signal for rescue. Their only hope was to repair it, but they lacked the necessary components. Zara, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke. There's a Kryln outpost not far from here. It's small, just a resupply depot, but it might have the parts you need. Jace regarded her thoughtfully. You're suggesting we steal from the Kryln? The same Kryln who shot us down. Zara met his gaze steadily. I'm suggesting we do what we must to survive. The Kryln left me here to die. I owe them nothing. After a tense discussion, a plan was formed. Jace, Zara, Mara, and the warrior, who introduced himself as Sergeant Tyrell Banks, would infiltrate the outpost under cover of darkness. The others would remain at the cave, ready to flee at a moment's notice if things went wrong. As they prepared to set out, the medic, Dr. Eli Patel, pulled Zara aside. He pressed a small medkit into her hands. "Be careful out there," he said softly. "We're counting on you." Zara nodded, touched by his concern. She wasn't used to anyone caring about her well-being. The journey to the outpost was tense and quiet. Zara led them through the dense undergrowth, using her intimate knowledge of the terrain to avoid the usual KRYLN patrols. As the angular structures of the outpost came into view, Jace signaled for them to halt. "All right, here's the plan," he whispered. "Zara and I will sneak in and locate the parts we need. Tyrell, you're on lookout. Mara, you're our backup. If things go south, we'll need you to create a diversion so we can escape." They all nodded, faces grim with determination. Zara led Jace to a small side entrance she knew was lightly guarded. They slipped inside, Jace's suit automatically adjusting to mimic the mottled greens and grays of the KRYLN interior. The outpost was quiet, with only a skeleton crew on duty. Zara navigated the winding corridors from memory, leading them to the storage bays. They found the components they needed, Jace's eyes lighting up as he examined them. Just as they were about to make their escape, an alarm blared through the compound. They had been discovered. Jace and Zara raced through the corridors, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. They burst out into the open air to find Mara engaged in a firefight with a group of KRYLN soldiers. Tyrell lay motionless on the ground, dark blood pooling beneath him. Jace immediately joined the fray, his weapon spitting bright bolts of energy. Zara, unarmed and desperate, looked around for anything that could help. She spotted a fuel canister lying near the entrance. With a surge of adrenaline, she hoisted it up and hurled it towards the KRYLN. The explosion was deafening. The KRYLN were thrown into disarray, giving Jace and Mara the opening they needed. Jace scooped up Tyrell's limp form and they ran, disappearing into the night as the outpost burned behind them. But their troubles were far from over. As they fled back towards their temporary base, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that they had just kicked a hornet's nest. The KRYLN would be coming for them now. It was only a matter of time. The outpost infiltration. Jace, Zara, and Mara raced through the twilight landscape, Tyrell's limp form weighing heavily in Jace's arms. Zara's heart pounded in her ears, fear and adrenaline coursing through her veins. The outpost alarm still echoed in the distance, a strident call to arms. They burst into the cave, startling the others. Dr. Patel rushed forward, his face paling as he saw Tyrell's condition. He immediately set to work, his hands steady even as his brow furrowed with concern. Jace gently laid Tyrell down and turned to the others. "We got the parts," he said, his voice grim. "But the KRYLN know we're here now. We need to repair the beacon and get out of here, fast." They worked feverishly, Jace and Mara piecing together the beacon under Zara's guidance. The parts were KRYLN, unfamiliar to the humans, but Zara's knowledge proved invaluable. Hours passed, the tension in the cave growing with each passing moment. Zara couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom, like a weight pressing down on her chest. She glanced at Tyrell, his chest rising and falling shallowly under Dr. Patel's care. Finally, just as the first rays of dawn were beginning to pierce the gloom, the beacon flickered to life. A cheer went up from the humans, weary but triumphant. But their celebration was short-lived. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. Zara's blood ran cold. She knew that sound, had heard it in her nightmares. "KRYLN ships," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They're coming." Jace's face hardened. "How long until backup arrives?" Mara checked the beacon, her face drawn. At least an hour. Maybe more. Jace nodded, his jaw set. Then we hold them off. We've come too far to give up now. They took up defensive positions around the cave entrance, weapons at the ready. Zara, unarmed but determined, stood with them. These humans, these strange beings from another world, were willing to fight for her. The least she could do was stand with them. The KRYLN ships descended like angry hornets, their weapons scorching the earth. The humans returned fire, their weapons woefully outmatched but their spirit undiminished. Wave after wave of KRYLN soldiers poured from the ships, their exoskeletons gleaming in the early morning light. They advanced on the cave, heedless of their losses, driven by a single-minded purpose. Zara watched in horror as one by one, her new friends fell. Mara, a defiant snarl etched on her face even in death. Dr. Patel, felled while tending to Tyrell. And Jace, brave, determined Jace, fighting to his last breath. As the KRYLN closed in, their weapons leveled at her, Zara closed her eyes. She had always known it would end like this, alone and forgotten on a desolate world. At least, she thought, she had known a brief moment of companionship, of purpose. But the end didn't come. Instead, a deafening roar filled the sky as a shadow fell over the battlefield. Zara's eyes snapped open to see human ships descending from the heavens, their weapons blazing. The KRYLN scattered, caught off guard by this new threat. The human ships touched down, and armored figures poured out, engaging the KRYLN in fierce combat. One of the figures approached Zara, their helmet retracting to reveal a woman's face, etched with concern. "I'm Captain Nora Ivanov," she said. "We received your distress call. Is anyone else alive?" Zara looked around at the fallen bodies of her friends, tears welling in her eyes. "No," she whispered. "I'm the only one left." Captain Ivanov's face softened. "Then come with us. You've been through hell, but it's over now. You're safe." As Zara stepped into the human ship, leaving the only world she had ever known behind, she felt a strange mix of emotions. Grief for her fallen friends, relief at her rescue, and a tentative hope for the future. She had no idea what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. Her life, and the lives of everyone on this ship, would never be the same again. Escape and rescue. Zara stepped into the human ship, Captain Nora Ivanov by her side. The interior was sleek and metallic, full of technology far beyond anything the KRYLN possessed. Crew members rushed about, tending to the wounded and preparing for takeoff. Captain Ivanov led Zara to the bridge, where she introduced her to the ship's commander, Admiral Elias Vance. He was an imposing figure, tall and broad-shouldered, with a face weathered by years of command. "You must be Zara," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "Captain Ivanov tells me we have you to thank for the survival of our people." Zara bowed her head, unsure how to respond. "I only did what anyone would have done," she said softly. Admiral Vance smiled. "Don't sell yourself short. You showed true courage and selflessness. Qualities we value highly in the Earth Alliance." As the ship lifted off, leaving the barren landscape of Zorgax Minor behind, Zara couldn't help but feel a pang of loss. This world, harsh and unforgiving as it was, had been her home. And the humans she had fought beside, brief as their time together had been, had become like family. In the days that followed, Zara found herself adrift, unsure of her place in this new world. The humans were kind, providing her with quarters and sustenance, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong. It was during one of her solitary wanderings of the ship's corridors that she encountered Dr. Lena Sorensen, the ship's chief xenobiologist. Dr. Sorensen was fascinated by Zara, eager to learn about KRYLN biology and culture. Through their conversations, Zara began to open up, sharing her story and her hopes for the future. Dr. Sorensen listened intently, offering comfort and understanding. "You know," she said one day, the Earth Alliance is always looking for individuals with unique skills and knowledge. Your familiarity with the KRYLN and your experience on Zorgax Minor could be invaluable. Zara was taken aback. You mean, I could have a place here? A purpose? Dr. Sorensen smiled warmly. Absolutely. We're not just a military, Zara. We're explorers, scientists, diplomats. We're trying to build a better future for all species. And I believe you could be a part of that. For the first time since her rescue, Zara felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could find a new home among the stars. As the ship journeyed on, Zara threw herself into learning all she could about human culture and technology. She worked closely with Dr. Sorensen, providing invaluable insights into KRYLN society and biology. And when the ship finally reached Earth, Zara was ready. Ready to start a new chapter, to find her place in this vast, wondrous universe. As she stepped out onto the surface of humanity's homeworld, feeling the sun on her face and the wind in her hair, Zara knew that her journey was just beginning. She had lost much, but she had also gained something precious, a second chance, and a new family to share it with. Whatever lay ahead, she would face it with the same courage and determination that had carried her through her darkest hours. For she was a survivor, a fighter, and now, a part of something greater than herself. She was Zara of Earth, and her story was just beginning.